This is The Close-Up, conversations about creativity, made possible by Barco. From our studios in Los Angeles, here is Jim Chabin.
Marcie Jastrow is with us. She serves as Senior Vice President of Immersive Media for Technicolor, the legendary entertainment services company. This last year, she was also tapped to head the company's new Experience Center. Welcome, Marcie.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
Very well. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.
You're one of the busiest people in Hollywood, truly, because you are involved with people who are trying to bring creative visions to life. You have worked with more A-list directors than just about everyone, and these are people with a lot on their shoulders. What are the directors that you admire? What qualities do they have that makes you want to work with them?
They don't give up. Tenacity. You know, they have a thought and they just go for it. And they're not afraid of anything. You know, I am so lucky. I have worked with some of the most amazing people and have been fortunate enough to learn from them. And I'm not a filmmaker, but it's amazing what you learn when you're sitting in a room with them, in a dark room for many hours. And I think it's tenacity. It's not easy to get a film done. I don't care who you are. And so to really just stick with it, to tell their story, is amazing. And it's amazing to watch when they are putting it together in the editing room and then in the color and then going to sound. It's just magical. It really is. It sounds so cheesy, but it is.
You serve on the board of governors of the Advanced Imaging and VR Societies in Hollywood, and yesterday we had a gathering of our board at Disney. One of the points that came out of those conversations from everybody is that we are going to see more VR content in 2017 in a significant way with higher budgets and more focus. What is it about VR that has captured your interest and your passion?
You know, at first I thought VR was strange and weird and didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And then I was fortunate enough to meet a director who created this really amazing piece. And I was all of a sudden immersed into a world that it happened to be catatonic, which was, going through an insane asylum. And I think all of us feel a little crazy at times. And when you get close to something, as immersed as I did in that one, I felt like that could be a world. And I was living in a virtual world. And so when I realized that worked, and that was kind of fun and scary, I realized, can you imagine what you could do with everything? You know, whether it's news, whether it's your everyday life, just being involved in something that you always wanted to try, but you were afraid to take that leap. Giving virtual reality a shot gives you that.
You're talking to someone that you're sitting down and they said, okay, I've not done VR. This is important. How do I approach a VR project? How is it different? I come out of a television background. I come out of a traditional movie background. Help me get into the mindset for making a great VR piece. How do I have to think differently?
You have to build the world. You have to think about the world. You have to think about the social and economic impacts of that world. You have to think about everything. You're creating virtual reality. What is reality? And so you have to really understand what all the implications are around that reality. And then you have to decide what your story is. What are you really trying to tell? It's about really understanding the entire world that you're trying to build and what story you're trying to tell. It all begins with the story.
What's the Experience Center?
The Technicolor Experience Center is a place for creatives and technologists to come together and create, consume, educate everybody about immersive media, virtual reality, augmented reality. We have a showroom in which we bring people in and educate them on the different HMDs, head-mounted displays. How do you function through a virtual reality experience or game? As you are aware, I think most people aren't used to putting headsets on and understanding how to get through the experience if there's interactivity. So we're there to educate, we're there to create, and we're there to consume. We are really servicing and inspiring our brands for Technicolor, so the Mill, MPC, Mr. X, Micros. We're the hub, and we're there to fill in the gaps. So we've brought in research and innovators to actually live and spend time so that they can have real world issues that they need to solve. And then we just easily fill in the gaps of workflow.
If someone is making VR now and working with you, are the tools there in order to make a high quality virtual reality experience for consumers?
I think we have tools. Are they the right tools? I'm not sure yet. We can make experiences and we can make high-end images and we can make them look great, but we're always limited with the technology. So that's the goal, the tech. You know, where are the limitations? Where does it break? How do we bring together game engine workflows for interactivity and your traditional post-production workflows or your traditional visual effects workflows? That's everything the tech is doing.
A studio colleague of ours, when I said, well, you know, how is the studio going to create VR? Who will you reach out to do it? And he said, we want creative people. We're an organization that grows creative people and helps them tell stories. But at least in the initial stages, we will not invest in VR projects unless the people who are coming to it have an understanding of traditional deadlines, budgets, workflows. They will be able to learn VR, but we need people that have the disciplines of our industry in order to entrust them with the kind of money that we will probably be investing. Is the expertise there? When you work on a VR project, are you challenged? Are you comfortable? No. Is it very difficult? Or are you?
No, it's very hard.
Yeah.
But that's what's so exciting about it. This is a partnership now. We're linking arms with the creatives. We're linking arms with the technologists. We're linking arms with the studios. And we're saying, let's go into this together. We have just scratched the surface. There are no tried and true, yes, you can do a live action and think that it was shot great and the stitching is gonna be wonderful. And as I just found out, it isn't so easy to do the stitching. So you have to be patient. And you can't say to studios or to people out there that traditional release deadlines are going to work in this medium until we've figured it out. We haven't even scratched the surface.
So humility is a good quality to have when you're working on this. The movie business has been around 100 years. Television's been around, you know, almost as long. Those processes, at least, a script, a director, music, are pretty standard ways to approach any process. Is it the same for VR? Is storytelling, is a script the central part of what you're trying to? How is VR different?
It depends upon what VR you're talking about. There's definitely different types. So you have a narrative where you're passive and you're just watching and immersed in the story. There's interactive where you're immersed in the story and then you get to actually partake into a story. But it all begins with story. So it's all about the story and it's all about the enhancing of that story using the technology. And humble is a great word. On any film that I ever worked on, the one thing, especially I'll talk about Avatar for a moment, the one thing that I learned in working in Avatar was every time you thought you had something figured out and you got cocky about it, you got bit in the butt. And so one of the things that I've taken through my career is to always be humble and to know that the technology can back up on you. And so you have to be agile. You have to be willing to make changes. You have to be willing to work with technology and different types of people who may be able to solve your problem. But the basic root of VR with picture, sound, those are what Technicolor have been doing for 100 years. And so we believe that we would be irresponsible not to take our history and apply it to what VR is and media is.
What's the response been from the creative community? Is this seen as something that inspires their imagination, or Are they reticent about it, or how are they approaching this?
So I was working with a director yesterday, young director, who is doing a traditional film, but in addition is doing a VR piece. And she said to me, I had no idea how to direct this. And I had no idea what I was doing. But I found myself so focused on the VR that I forgot about the 2D. And I think that once you start getting involved with even the technical workflows or the workflows or what is possible, these directors fall in love, because it's just like any story. If you're watching a film, you don't want that film to end. You want it to go on. And you want to know what it was like to live in that world. And that's what VR gives you. It gives you the glimpse of living in those worlds.
I have a good friend who'd been in the hospital for some surgery. And afterwards, for 8 or 9 days, they have to sit in a hospital bed all day. And they've got somebody else in the room, the TV's on, turned up loud, and people are coming in and out. And I thought, someday, there'll be a headset and a pair of earphones that someone can, and put them on a beach in Greece, because they're here doing the boredom, trying to find a book. Where do you see the use of VR in our world, in AR? But what's your imagination tell you about where we may see this over the next decade?
I think medical is huge. I think the travel, being able to go to places and have an immersive experience is also going to be huge. I think that real estate is really interesting. I think that architecture is very interesting. I think that entertainment and media, it starts with us simply because you're creating content. So that's what we do. But virtual reality is all about the content.
Well, it's fascinating that you just gave a pretty impressive list of obvious, as you're mentioning architecture and you're going down the list, far beyond Hollywood, right? Mm-hmm. This is something that will impact people where they work.
Absolutely.
Where they play.
Manufacturing. Imagine, being able to go in and put a headset on and have an entire tutorial about how to fix something, rather than waiting for someone to come out and fix it. You're a person who is sitting in a hospital who needs to get chemotherapy. And what if you were able to go to a different world as you were having that procedure done? There are hundreds and hundreds of uses for VR.
When you look at a VR experience, and we're in the early stages, and when the Lumiere brothers first made their movies, and Technicolor was first making movies, they were 5 or 6 minutes long. What do you think the smart length, if someone's making a VR experience, what would you advise to say, don't worry about making Gone with the Wind here, work on, what do you think?
I think less is more.
Okay.
I think that you can get a great story in 5 to 8 minutes on a narrative. However, there needs to be a reason to come back to the headset. So, short films have not been a great business for Hollywood. So is that what VR is these short narratives? There needs to be a reason to keep coming back. I can tell you that I, who am in a headset constantly, need a reason to come back to the headset. So I think it needs to be episodic in nature, and I think if you keep them short, you can keep the quality there. When you have interactivity and you have levels, if you're trying to do an experience that has interactivity in it and you're trying to achieve certain levels, that's when you can go to your 20 to your 30 minute. But I honestly believe we need to have a reason to keep coming back to the headset.
Do you, if someone is coming to you for advice and saying, does this need to be in 3D or can this be in 2D? How do you counsel that?
I think you need to look at the story and decide why are you doing it in 3D? Why are you doing it in 2D? Why are you doing it in VR? What is so compelling about that world that you're trying to create that it can't be done passively or it can't be done as a 3D image or in VR? It needs to be a reason, and you need to be committed. It is not for the faint at heart, I will tell you that. It is a long, long commitment to build a VR experience.
How long? From beginning to end, concept to end, someone comes to you with a project. Let's say it's going to be 5 minutes. It's going to be a piece that goes with a movie that's coming out next year.
6 months.
6 months.
6 to 8 months.
What do we have to solve or improve on if you were putting a checklist of 5 goals or 3 goals for the industry saying, guys, we've got to get this done to meet the expectations that I know I expect for a movie coming out of Technicolor. I want this to be the same.
I think education, as I keep saying, is huge. It's getting people comfortable in a headset, getting comfortable using hand controllers, getting comfortable wearing something on their head, and understanding why they're wearing something on their head. So education is a huge part for us. It's why we have a showroom that has every HMD and every headset that you can possibly imagine, so that we can bring people in to have them experience it in a non-frictionless way.
One of the music companies told us the story that when they were first working on VR, they said, oh, this was great. We can go to a concert, you can take you to a concert. So we went to a concert, we took the 3rd row seat, we plopped the camera down, we recorded it. We came back thinking, oh my gosh, we just got this great concert. A minute and a half in, we were staring up at the ceiling, we were staring at the floor, and we realized, you know what? This isn't as exciting as we thought it was going to be. So you kind of have to dispense with your preconceived notions of what you think VR is going to be great at, and learn before you start.
Yeah, and I think that there's going to be a new language. You know, there's a whole new language to this type of filmmaking and this type of content creation. And again, that's why I say you have to be patient, and you have to be willing to make a lot of mistakes with it.
Technicolor began 100 years ago. I'm a great watcher of Turner Classic Movies. I love it. Over the holidays, I consumed everything from American in Paris to Singing in the Rain. Technicolor is always a part of what Ben Mankiewicz and the Robert Osborne talk about. You know, this was one of the first movies in Technicolor, and the movies are so. But Technicolor has reinvented itself as a company consistently for 100 years. It is still an incredibly go-to company for filmmakers who want to take their creative project to the best possible way. And you're creating a VR experience organization. What is the process of reinventing? How is that? Is it intimidating? Is it exciting? What's that culture like?
I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I think I mean, what a better job to have than to reinvent the company, you know, every 5 to 7 years, and to look at and not be afraid to fail, not be afraid to try new things. You know, change is so part of everyday life that your company that you're working for has to be willing to do those changes. And so I'm fortunate that I work for a company that wants to constantly reinvent themselves. It gets scary, you know, and you wonder if you're going down the right road or if this is the right path for that company. But at the same time, I think that if companies don't do it, you're just going to be, you know, that company that was really great at this but never did that.
Do you see VR, let's say 5, 10 years from now, is VR, AR, is that a central part of the creative industry that is Hollywood?
Yes, I do. I hope. I've bet my career on it. I believe that it is going to wow the world with everything and every way that you can experience, whether it's in VR or AR, any sort of immersive media. I think that you can finally really partake in a narrative or in a interactive piece, and you can really be a part of that story now.
You and your team, I would say, without hesitation, are the most respected team for what you do in this town. If someone wants to know more about the Experience Center, where should they go? The Technicolor website?
Technicolor website. We have a Technicolor Experience Center website that we've just finished. They can link in me, they can Google me, they can get a hold of me, Facebook me.
Your information is going to be on the screen as we speak right now. Congratulations. Thank you for leading us into the future.
Thank you.
And come back and tell us how it's all coming together.
I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcie.
The Close-Up is produced by the Advanced Imaging and VR Societies in Hollywood and is powered by Barco.